You're being let go effective immediately. Those 6 words hung in the air between us. 14 years, 168 months, over 5,000 days of loyalty, and this was how it ended. Julian Mercer sat across from me, his fingers steepled like he was delivering some profound wisdom instead of destroying someone's career. I didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even flinch. Instead, I smiled. A real smile. The kind that must have unsettled him because his left eye twitched slightly. I stood up, unclipped my badge from my belt, and placed it gently on his polished mahogany desk. "Good luck with the product launch tomorrow," I said evenly. His face went pale just for a second, but I caught it, that flicker of panic before he composed himself again. "Security will escort you out," he managed, reaching for his phone. "Of course," I replied, gathering my personal coffee mug, the one that said I turned coffee into code, and the small, succulent Leo had given me last Father's Day. Nothing else. I didn't need anything else. As the security guard, a kind older man named George, walked beside me through the corridor, I kept that smile. My colleagues' faces blurred past, some shocked, some sympathetic, some carefully neutral. I didn't stop to say goodbye. There wasn't time, and honestly, it was not necessary. George held the elevator door for me. "Sorry about this." "Roland," he murmured. "Don't be," I told him. "Really, don't be." He looked confused but didn't press. We rode down in silence from the 23rd floor. When the doors opened to the lobby, I walked through those glass doors for the last time as an employee of Zenith Technologies. The autumn air hit my face, crisp and clean. I checked my watch, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. My name's Roland Vance, and until approximately 12 minutes ago, I was the senior systems architect at Zenith Technologies. That's a fancy title for someone who essentially built the backbone of every major software product the company's released in the past decade. I designed systems, I solved impossible problems, I worked weekends and holidays, and I made other people look brilliant. 14 years ago, I'd walked through those same glass doors as a junior developer, fresh-faced and ambitious. I was 26, newly married to Elena, no kids yet, and absolutely convinced that hard work and talent would be enough. That merit mattered. I learned differently over the years. I watched less qualified people get promoted over me. I watched my ideas get credited to others. I watched my salary increase in tiny increments, while newcomers with half my experience got signing bonuses that exceeded my annual raise. But I stayed. Why? Because I believed in the work. Because I'd built something I took pride in. Because I kept thinking next year would be different. 3 months ago, I'd finally had enough. I went to Julian, who'd been VP of Engineering for the past 5 years, and I made my case calmly, professionally with documentation. I'd compiled every project I'd led, every crisis I'd solved, every metric that proved my value. I asked for what I deserved, a promotion to principal architect and a salary that matched my contributions. He'd smiled at me then, too. That same condescending smile. "Roland, you're a valuable team member, but you need to be realistic about your expectations. The company's budget is tight. We'll review this again next quarter." Next quarter. Always next quarter. I'd heard that line for 14 years. But something was different that day. Maybe it was turning 40. Maybe it was Mia coming home from school and asking why her friend's mom, who worked fewer hours, could afford the dance camp Mia wanted to attend. Maybe it was watching Elena work 2 jobs to help cover our mortgage while I worked for a company valued at $3 billion. Whatever it was, something shifted. I walked out of Julian's office that day and made a decision. Not to quit, not to complain, but to prepare. Because here's what 14 years in the tech industry teaches you. Knowledge is power, but leverage is everything. I started documenting everything. Every system I designed, every password I'd created, every piece of critical infrastructure that ran through my hands. Not to steal, nothing illegal. Just to understand exactly how dependent Hexagon was on work I'd done on systems only I fully understood. The Apex project was their biggest product launch in company history. A revolutionary data management platform they'd been building for 2 years, set to debut with a major client demo that could secure a $50 million contract. The launch was scheduled for tomorrow, October 16th, at 2 in the afternoon, and I'd architected 90% of it, but I'd also built something else, a small, elegant piece of code I called the audit protocol. It wasn't malicious, it didn't delete anything or corrupt any data. It simply ran a comprehensive audit of system access and flagged inconsistencies, things like security vulnerabilities, unauthorized access patterns, instances where company policy was being violated. I built it 6 weeks ago and embedded it deep in the Apex infrastructure set to run automatically during the pre-launch system check. The check that was scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 in the morning, 6 hours before the client demo. The audit protocol would reveal some very interesting things. Things I discovered over the past 3 months while preparing my promotion case. Things like Julian authorizing unvetted contractors to access proprietary code, like budget money disappearing into shell vendors, like security protocols being bypassed to meet deadlines. Nothing I could prove directly without access. Nothing I could report without being dismissed as a disgruntled employee. But the audit protocol would flag all of it automatically, generate reports, and send them to the compliance team and the board of directors. And the only person who knew how to stop it was me. I'd planned to use this as leverage to go back to Julian in a few weeks with a simple proposition. Give me what I deserve, and I'll make sure tomorrow's launch goes perfectly. Deny me and I'll let the chips fall where they may. But Julian moved first. He'd fired me today, the day before the launch, which meant either he'd somehow found out about my leverage and was calling my bluff, or he was monumentally stupid. I was betting on the latter. I drove home through afternoon traffic, my mind calm. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the highway. First a text from Claire in QA. What happened? Are you okay? Then from Declan, and it just heard. This is insane. I didn't respond to any of them. There'd be time for that later. Elena's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up to our modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. He worked from home on Tuesdays consulting for a small firm that designed sustainable architecture. He'd given up a bigger career years ago, so one of us could have schedule flexibility for the kids. He met me at the door, concern written across his face. You're home early. Everything okay? I sat down my bag and looked at my wife of 16 years. Salt and pepper hair starting at his temples, smile lines around his eyes. The same kind face I'd fallen in love with in grad school. I got fired, I said simply. His expression went through several shifts: shock, anger, confusion. What? How? Why? Julian said they're eliminating my position. Budget cuts, he claimed, though they just hired 3 new developers last month at higher salaries than mine. Elena's jaw tightened. He knew the whole story. He'd listened to me vent for years about being overlooked, underpaid, undervalued. He'd encouraged me to leave dozens of times, but also supported my decision to stay when I wasn't ready. Those bastards, he said quietly, then more urgently. Are you okay? I mean, really okay. That's when I let the smile return. I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. He knew me too well. His eyes narrowed slightly. Roland, what did you do? Nothing illegal, nothing unethical. I just made sure that the work I built was documented and that certain safeguards were in place. Safeguards. I explained about the audit protocol, about what it would reveal, about the timing. As I talked, Elena's expression shifted from concern to something like awe. So tomorrow morning, 6 hours before their biggest launch in history, the system's going to expose everything wrong with how that project was managed. Correct. And you're the only one who knows how to fix it. Also correct. He was quiet for a moment, then he started laughing. Not a small chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh. 14 years. They had you for 14 years and they threw you away the day before they needed you most. Poetic, isn't it? The front door burst open and chaos entered in the form of our 2 kids. Leo, 12 years old and all elbows and energy, dropped his backpack with a thud. Mia, 9, was talking before she was fully through the door. Mom, you're home. Can Emma come over? Her mom said it's okay if you say yes, and we want to practice our presentation for science class. And she stopped reading the room. What's wrong? Kids have radar for tension. Both of them were looking between Elena and me now. Nothing's wrong, I said, and meant it. Actually, something's different. I'm not working at Zenith anymore. They decided they didn't need me. Leo's eyes went wide. They fired you, but you're the smartest person there. Thank you, sweetheart, but sometimes being smart isn't enough. Mia, ever practical, asked, does this mean we have less money? Elena and I exchanged a glance. We'd always been honest with our kids about finances age appropriately. We'll be fine, Elena assured Mia. Mom's going to get a much better job with people who appreciate her, and in the meantime, we have savings. That was mostly true. We had about 4 months of expenses saved. Not great, not terrible, and I had absolute confidence I could land another position within that time frame. Senior systems architects with my track record didn't stay unemployed long. But that wasn't the point. The point was making sure Zenith understood what they'd lost. Leo, always the entrepreneur, piped up. "Does this mean you can help me with my science fair project now?" Dad said he would, but he keeps trying to make everything sustainable. And Mr. Peterson said, "We can't build a solar-powered volcano." Despite everything, I laughed. "A solar-powered volcano?" Elena shrugged sheepishly. "In my defense, it would have been educational. It would have been impossible," Leo said. "Volcanoes need chemical reactions, not sunlight. That's basic science, Mom." "Well, excuse me," Professor Elena said, ruffling Leo's hair. "Maybe your mom can help you build a regular, boring, non-sustainable volcano." "I'd be happy to," I said. "After tomorrow." Mia was still watching me carefully. "You seem happy, Mom. You don't seem sad like when Grandma's cat died." "That's because this is different, sweetie. Sometimes losing something makes room for something better. Like when I lost my first tooth and got $5. Exactly like that, except hopefully with more than $5 involved." The evening proceeded normally. Homework supervision, dinner preparation, the usual dance of family logistics. But underneath it all, I was aware of time passing. The audit protocol was set to trigger at 9 in the morning. In less than 18 hours, everything would change. I slept better that night than I had in months. Morning came with gray skies and the smell of Elena's coffee. He'd let me sleep in, handled getting the kids to school. When I came downstairs at 8:15, he handed me a mug and kissed my forehead. "Ready for the fireworks?" he asked. "They should be starting in about 45 minutes. My phone had been quiet all evening and night, but at 8:53 in the morning, it started. First, a call from an unknown number I didn't answer. Then a text from Clara. "Something's happening with Apex Systems, flagging thousands of issues. Where are you?" Then Declan. "Roland, are you available? We have a situation." Then my phone actually rang. Julian's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring through to voicemail. Then I played it on speaker so Elena could hear. "Roland, it's Julian. Look, I know yesterday was difficult, but we have a situation with the Apex system. Some kind of audit process is running, and it's flagging concerns before the launch. I need you to call me back immediately. This is urgent." I deleted the voicemail and took a sip of coffee. It was still hot, perfectly brewed. Elena made better coffee than the expensive machine in Zenith's break room ever did. Elena raised his eyebrows, not even going to call back. Not yet. Let them sweat. 3 more calls came in over the next 20 minutes. Julian twice more, then finally one from Harrison Cole, the chief technology officer. A senior VP calling a fired employee. That was interesting. I answered that one. "Roland Vance," I said professionally. "Roland, thank goodness. This is Harrison Cole. I apologize for calling so early, but we have an urgent situation with the Apex platform. I understand you were the lead architect. I was until I was terminated yesterday." A brief pause. "Yes, about that. I only learned about your departure this morning, and I'm going to be honest, the timing is concerning. We have a critical system audit running that's flagging numerous issues before our launch, and my team tells me you're the most familiar with the infrastructure." "That's accurate." "Would you be willing to come in and consult on this? We'd compensate you for your time." "Of course, I'm afraid I'm not available today. I have other commitments." My other commitments consisted of absolutely nothing, but he didn't need to know that. Actually, that was a lie. I did have one commitment, watching my former employer panic. Another pause, longer this time. "Roland, I'm going to be frank. This launch represents a $50 million contract. If we can't resolve these flags and assure the client that our security and compliance are solid, we lose that deal. What would it take to get you in here today?" There it was. The question I'd been waiting to hear. I could have played hardball immediately, named an astronomical consulting rate, made them squirm, but that felt too simple, too expected. "Mr. Ashford, I'm curious about something. Did you know I requested a promotion and raise 3 months ago?" Silence, then carefully. "No, I wasn't aware of that." "Did you know that I've been the lowest paid senior architect in the department for 4 years, despite having the most seniority and the strongest project record?" That's not information I have immediate access right now. And did you know that when I presented documentation of my contributions and requested fair compensation, I was told the budget was too tight, and then I was fired the day before the most important launch I'd architected? I could hear him breathing. Roland, I don't have all the context here, but what I'm hearing concerns me deeply. Can we meet in person today to discuss both this immediate technical situation and the broader issues you're raising now? We were getting somewhere. What time is your client demo? 2 in the afternoon. I can be there at 11, but not as an employee begging for her job back. As a consultant with terms. What terms? We'll discuss that in person. And Mr. Ashford, I want you in the room, not Julian Mercer. Understood. I'll have a conference room ready. 11th floor executive suite. Check in at reception and they'll direct you. I hung up and looked at Elena, who was grinning like he just won the lottery. You're kind of terrifying right now, he said admiringly. Good. I spent the next 2 hours preparing, not technically. I knew the Apex system better than anyone, but strategically. I pulled together documentation, my promotion request and Julian's denial, my salary history, compared to colleagues with similar titles, a timeline of major projects I'd led, and the bonuses and promotions others had received for work I'd done. I also pulled together a technical summary of what the audit protocol was revealing and what it would take to resolve it. Because here's the thing. I wasn't trying to destroy Zenith. I wasn't trying to sabotage the launch or hurt the company. I was trying to correct an injustice and establish my value in terms they couldn't ignore. At 10:30, I dressed in my best suit, a charcoal gray number I usually reserved for conferences. I pulled my hair back, minimal makeup, professional but powerful. Elena whistled when I came downstairs. Go get what you deserve, he said. The drive to Zenith's headquarters felt different than it had thousands of times before. I wasn't going as someone who needed them. I was going as someone they needed. The power dynamic had flipped entirely. I pulled into the parking garage at 10:45, giving myself plenty of time. But as I was walking toward the elevator, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Roland, wait. I turned. Julian was jogging toward me, his face flushed, tie askew. He looked like he'd been up all night, which he probably had. We need to talk, he said, slightly out of breath. Before you go up there, I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please, he moved to block my path to the elevator. Just give me 5 minutes. You're literally in my way, Julian. I know what you did, he said, his voice dropping. The audit protocol, you built it to sabotage me. I built it to ensure system integrity. The fact that it exposed your shortcuts isn't my fault. His face was getting redder. You can't go up there and talk to Harrison. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You violated security protocols, mismanaged budgets, and fired me to cover your mistakes. Now you're panicking because it's all coming to light. I can fix this, he said desperately. I can get you your job back. The promotion you wanted. We don't need to involve Harrison or the legal team. You can't get me my job back, Julian. You already fired me, and now I have a meeting with someone who actually has authority. I tried to step around him, but he grabbed my arm. Not hard, but enough to stop me. Don't touch me, I said quietly. Remove your hand right now. Just listen. He was almost pleading. Now you turn off that audit. I'll fix everything. You'll what? Make more promises you won't keep. Deny me again next quarter. Fire me when I become inconvenient. I made a mistake. Okay, I admit it. But if you do this, if you go up there and expose everything, it doesn't just hurt me, it hurts the whole team. People could lose their jobs. That gave me pause. Not because I believed him entirely, but because it was true that company fallout could affect innocent people. Who exactly do you mean? I asked. The developers. The engineers who were just following orders. If this launch fails, if we lose this contract, there will be layoffs. Is that what you want to take everyone down with me? I looked at him carefully. He was sweating now, desperation rolling off him in waves. This was a man who'd built his career on taking credit for other people's work and avoiding accountability for his own mistakes. And now, finally, he was cornered. Here's what I want you to understand, I said, keeping my voice level. The audit protocol will run its course. The launch can still succeed, but only if the issues it flagged are addressed properly. That's not sabotage, that's quality assurance. But you're the only one who can fix it quickly. Yes, and I will, but not for you. Not to save your career. I'll do it for the team that actually built this system. For Clara, who spent months in quality testing. For Declan, who managed the infrastructure. For all the people who did actual work while you took credit and collected bonuses. Roland, please move Julian. He didn't. For a moment we stood there in the concrete parking garage, and I could see him making calculations. Could he physically stop me? Would that work? His hand was still on my arm. Then a voice echoed across the garage. Is there a problem here? We both turned. A woman in a sharp pantsuit was standing by a nearby car, mid-50s, silver hair, carrying herself with authority. I recognized her vaguely but could not remember her name. No problem, Julian said quickly, dropping his hand from my arm. Just a conversation. The woman walked closer. Roland Vance. Yes, I'm Valerie Hayes, Chief Legal Officer. Mr. Ashford asked me to make sure you made it to the meeting safely. I see his instinct was correct. Julian's face went from red to white. The head of legal witnessing him physically restraining a fired employee in a parking garage was not good optics. I was just leaving, he muttered. Excellent idea, Valerie said coolly. Roland, shall we? I followed her to the elevator, glancing back once to see Julian standing alone between the cars, looking like a man watching his world collapse. I felt a tiny spark of satisfaction. In the elevator, Valerie pressed the button for 11. Sorry about that. Harrison mentioned there might be some tension, so I came down to meet you personally. That was good timing. We take employee safety seriously. Former employee safety, too. She paused. For what it's worth, I've been reviewing your file this morning. What happened to you shouldn't have happened. No, it shouldn't have. Let's see if we can make it right. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Plush carpeting, original art on the walls, the kind of quiet that comes from heavy doors and serious money. I'd only been up here a handful of times in 14 years. Harrison Cole met us at the elevator. He was in his late 50s, silver hair, the kind of man who probably spent his weekends sailing. I'd been in maybe 3 meetings with him over the years, always briefly. Roland, thank you for coming. He extended his hand and I shook it firmly. Conference room's this way. He led us to a glass-walled room with a view of the city. Inside there was a laptop setup and coffee service arranged on the sideboard. Someone had put thought into this. We sat. Harrison folded his hands on the table. So, let's start with the immediate situation. My team tells me there's an automated audit process running on Apex that's flagging numerous security and compliance concerns. They can't override it or disable it without potentially corrupting the launch build. Can you explain what's happening? Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where workplace justice unfolds in ways that might surprise you. If you're interested in seeing how this plays out, hit that subscribe button. Let's start reaching our goal of 9,000 subscribers together. I opened my laptop and pulled up the technical documentation. 6 weeks ago, I implemented an audit protocol as part of the Apex infrastructure. It's designed to run a comprehensive check before launch to identify any security vulnerabilities, policy violations, or compliance issues. It's actually a feature, not a bug. Any enterprise-level system should have something like this. But it's flagging problems, Valerie asked. It's flagging discrepancies. Whether they're problems depends on your perspective. I turned the screen so they could see. For example, it's identified 17 instances where external contractors were given code access without proper security clearances. That's a violation of your own IT security policy. Harrison's expression tightened. Who authorized that the authorization trail leads back to Julian Mercer? My assumption is he did it to meet deadlines, but it exposed proprietary code to individuals who hadn't been properly vetted. Valerie was taking notes. What else? I walked them through it. The budget irregularities, vendor payments that didn't match project records, security protocols that had been bypassed. None of it was my opinion or speculation. It was all data that the audit protocol had collected and flagged based on Zenith's own policies. This is damning for Julian, Harrison said quietly. It's also fixable, I said. The technical issues can be resolved before the launch. The contractors can be removed from the access lists. The security protocols can be reinstated. The documentation can be corrected. I'd estimate 4 hours of work for someone who knows the system architecture. Can you do it? He asked. Yes. Will you? That depends on the second part of this conversation. Valerie and Harrison exchanged glances. He nodded to her and she spoke. I pulled your employment file this morning after Harrison called me. I also pulled comparative data for your colleagues. What I found disturbed me. She slid a printed document across the table. It was a salary comparison chart. My name was at the bottom of the senior architect list, despite having the most tenure. 3 people hired after me were making 15 to 25% more. I also reviewed your promotion request from 3 months ago. Valerie continued. Your documentation was thorough and frankly compelling. The denial appears to have been unilateral from Julian without proper review. That's not protocol. So what happens now? I asked. Harrison leaned forward. Here's what I'd like to propose. First, regarding today, we hire you as an independent consultant at a rate of $500 per hour to resolve the Helix issues and ensure the launch proceeds smoothly. That's non-negotiable and will be contracted immediately. $500 an hour for 4 hours of work. That was $2,000, more than I'd made in a week as an employee. Second, he continued, we conduct a formal review of your termination and the circumstances around it. Based on what I'm seeing here, I have serious concerns about how this was handled. If that review concludes what I suspect it will, we'd like to offer you reinstatement. As a senior architect, I asked. As a principal architect, Valerie said, with a salary adjusted to the top of the range for that position, which would be a 38% increase from your previous compensation, plus full back pay for yesterday and today. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was singing. This was more than I'd requested. This was vindication. And third, I asked, because there was clearly more. Harrison smiled slightly. Third, we'd like you to lead a comprehensive audit of our engineering division's management practices. Compensation, equity, and project oversight. Report directly to me because if this happened to you, I need to know who else has been overlooked or mismanaged. That was unexpected. That was also significant. That was essentially giving me the power to reshape the entire division. What happens to Julian? I asked. That depends on the investigation, Valerie said carefully. But someone who circumvents security protocols, mismanages budgets, and terminates top talent the day before a critical launch isn't demonstrating sound judgment. Also, his behavior in the parking garage this morning will be documented. Translation: Julian was finished. They just needed to do it properly. I sat back in my chair. Everything I'd wanted, everything I'd worked for was on the table. But there was one more thing I wanted in writing. All of it. The consulting contract, the reinstatement offer, the new title and salary, the audit project. I want it documented and signed before I touch a single line of code today. Absolutely, Valerie said. I'll have contracts drafted within the hour. Then we have a deal. We shook hands. Harrison looked relieved, like a man who just avoided driving off a cliff. I'll have someone set you up in a private office. Whatever you need, equipment, access, just ask. I'll need my old security credentials reinstated temporarily, access to the Apex production environment, and a very large coffee. The good stuff from the executive break room, not that swill from the 23rd floor. Harrison actually laughed. Done. Anything else? One of those fancy ergonomic chairs. I've had back pain for 3 years from the cheap ones in my old cube. Consider it done. They set me up in an empty VP office on the 20th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city skyline, and yes, one of those 1,000 ergonomic chairs. I adjusted it to the perfect height and couldn't help but smile. By noon, I had the contract signed, my access restored, and I was deep in the Apex code. It felt like coming home. Honestly, this system was my creation, my architecture. Fixing it was almost meditative. The issues the audit protocol had flagged were serious, but as I'd known, resolvable. I removed the unauthorized contractor access, restored the proper security layers, corrected the documentation discrepancies. Each fix was like untangling a knot, satisfying in its precision. At one point, Clara knocked on the office door. She peeked in, eyes wide. Is it true you're back? Temporarily, then permanently, but different. She came in and closed the door. Everyone's been freaking out. The Helix system went crazy this morning. Julian looked like he was having a stroke. And then word spread that you were coming in to save the day. You're like a superhero. I'm really not. I just know what I built. That's exactly what makes you a superhero. She paused. For what it's worth, what they did to you was garbage. Half the team wanted to walk out in protest. That touched me more than I expected. Thanks, but keep your jobs. Things are going to change around here. That's what people are saying. Something about you running an audit of the whole division. Word travels fast. This is a tech company. Gossip moves at fiber optic speed. She grinned. Give him hell, Roland. After she left, I returned to the code. By 1:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the client demo, Apex was purring like a well-tuned engine. Every system green, every security protocol in place, every piece of documentation clean. I walked down to the demo room where Harrison and the sales team were doing final preparations.